everybody, and welcome to Generally Speaking, the podcast that bridges the worlds of pop culture and personal development. I'm your host, Jennifer Snook. I'm so happy to be here with you guys today. I hope everything has been going well in your world. Before we dive in, I just wanted to take a minute to check in, not about Housewives or headlines, but just about life. On last week's pod, I filled you guys in about how sick I'd been and about how my mom and I and a few other family members caught influenza A at a family birthday party. It was 12 days of absolute hell, you guys. I'm telling you, it was so brutal. But thank God that is over, and I am happy to report that I am back in the land of the living. Still sleeping a lot, but I feel so much better, you guys. Thank God. And thank you for all of the well wishes, and not just the ones for me, but especially the ones for my mom. I mean, honestly, you guys, I can't thank you enough. That was so sweet. I am very happy to report that my mother is also feeling a lot better from her influenza A, but remember, she is still on that hardcore chemo, so she is still weak and fragile and super nauseous all the time, and it is just so hard to watch. You know, I have been watching my mom battle cancer for over 30 years. In 1993, she was diagnosed for the first time. She had a lumpectomy and radiation. And then 10 years later, it came back in the other breast and they did a double mastectomy and chemotherapy. And then 12 years after that, just a few months after we moved to LA in 2012, it came back metastasized, and it was in her breastbone and in her iliac crest, so places that they couldn't operate on. So my mother has been living with metastatic breast cancer. Well, she's been living with breast cancer for over 30 years, but metastatic for over the last 12 years. And my mother is just a walking miracle, you guys. My mother has beat all the odds, and was just like a year and a half ago that she was in India at this beautiful wedding. I mean, my mother has not let cancer stop her in any way, shape, or form. But my mother is also 74 years old right now, and her poor little body has been through so much. And it's impossible to not look at her now and not know that my time with her is limited. It's very clear. And she is weak, and I can tell that she's scared. And I know that we're on borrowed time. Sorry. I'm just terrified of losing her. I mean, I've already started dress rehearsing it, not because I want to, just because I have to. Because the truth is, grief doesn't start with the goodbye. It starts with the knowing, and I know what's coming, and I know what's ahead, and I hate it. But I know that with great love comes great pain, and it's like I say all the time, pain is a very important part of life's process. Not a fun part, but in the circle of life, it is a very important part. And the truth is, if you keep doubling down on faith, it hurts a whole lot less. So that's my plan with all of this, because I know the waves are going to keep coming. So I stay rooted in love, grounded in gratitude, with my feet firmly planted in faith. And that is how I plan on getting through this whole thing. So that's where I'm at. Before we jump into the Bravo world, I wanted to start with a little real world, because the truth is, no matter what's actually happening on these shows, the stuff underneath it all is usually about love and loss, identity, and all the other things that we're trying to hold together. Now, speaking of holding it all together, you guys, it is time to get into the Teresa debacle, because Teresa gave us a lot this week, and so did Dolores. It was rich. I mean, classic Teresa, classic Dolores. Let's get into it. So as the whole world knows, Teresa went on a morning news show in Chicago to promote a personal appearance. And while she was on, the male anchor asked Teresa how it is that a family goes for years and years without paying their taxes. And Teresa froze like a deer in headlights, and she said, "Which family?" And he says, "Your family." And then Teresa fumbled with her phone and eventually hung up. And we all covered it. Everybody talked about it. I think it was on page 6. And then Tamara had Dolores on 2Ts to do a recap of the Valley. And when Dolores was on there, Tamara says, "Listen, Dolores, I know she's your friend, and I hate to bring this up, but we have to talk about Teresa." So then Tamara goes on, and she's reading about what happened. And she says Teresa was visibly shaken before she ended the call. And Dolores claps right back and says, "I don't blame her." And Tamara says, "Well, I think she could have handled it a little differently." And Dolores says, "Well, I think she was just really taken aback." And then she goes on and she's talking about how Larry, the newscaster, asked Teresa how a family doesn't pay their taxes. And Dolores screams, Fuck you, Larry. I mean, fuck you, Larry. Really, Dolores? I mean, honestly, Dolores's blind loyalty is ridiculous at this point. And all it really is just more of a testament to why that franchise is stuck the way it is. Because as long as that cast is still tiptoeing around people's fragile feelings instead of telling the truth, it's gonna stay stuck. And honestly, I have always been a huge fan of Dolores, but at this point, I'm pretty sure Delolo is Delulu. And then Teresa does what she's calling this big clapback on her podcast, Turning the Tables. And she brought in Christian Grey so that he could be there as a buffer. So it's Christian, her producer, and Teresa. And she is responding to what happened. She billed the episode as the big clapback, but it should have just been the big clusterfuck, because just like with everything in Teresa's life, it was all over the place. She comes out of the gate in true Teresa fashion, doing what she does best, blaming everybody else, and of course reframing everything so nothing's her fault. She says, that guy was trying to get a rise out of me. But can I just say, Teresa, you didn't have to let him. And I know you don't have a team around you anymore, but just for the future, remember this. Next time somebody asks you a question about your taxes, say, you know, Mr. Reporter, that is a very good question. And unfortunately, I don't have a very good answer for you. But I'm a law-abiding citizen and I am committed to paying that money back. And that is exactly why I'm here today. Because Christian Grey and I are going to be doing a fun, fabulous show and we would love for you to join us. That's how you answer that question without ending the call. But she can't do that. She says that everything that she does blows up, and that's actually why she can't go to a nude beach. And then she starts going on and on about how she really wants to go to a nude beach, and she thinks about it all the time, and she wants to be able to go, but she can't because everybody blows up everything she does. And P.S., by the way, Louie wouldn't even mind if she went to a nude beach because she has cute boobies. And then, you know, and the truth is, normally when you go and you do an interview like that, your people, this is Teresa talking, tell them what they can and cannot talk about. You know that, Christian? You tell them what you can and cannot talk about. And these guys didn't care. They just broke the rules. I mean, it's unbelievable. And then she says, and you know what? When they're disrespectful to me like that, I would rather just leave the conversation than give them the time or day. Give them the time or day. Timer. But I digress. And then she goes on in this reframing effort and tries to tell everyone, thank you so much for all of your supportive comments. I saw all of your comments and I saw how supportive they are. And thank you so much for supporting me. But hello, which comments is Teresa talking about now? Because I looked at the comments. I dove deep into those comments and I didn't see the comments she's talking about. I saw comments that said just the opposite. Then Teresa goes on and says that this guy that asked her the disrespectful question ended the conversation. But newsflash, Teresa, it wasn't him that ended it. It was you that ended it because you couldn't handle the question. And the question was not disrespectful. It's a question that you should have been prepared for and you should have had an answer for. It's not what happens to you, Teresa, in life. Remember that. It's how you handle it. And the fact of the matter is that you don't handle things well because you have no bandwidth. Because truthfully, all you are is a huge, open, gaping, walking around wound. You are a human wound and you are so hypersensitive that you've created a space around yourself where everybody has to be so careful about what they say. Don't do this to me. Don't do that to me because I can't handle it. And then you create a space around you where everyone's afraid to walk. And that's how you control your environment. And then Teresa decides to make a statement and she says, I'm going to read this because I put my thoughts together. And so then she goes on and she reads, there's been a lot said lately and I get it. Some of it is from years ago and being pulled into the present. I've made changes to my team, which we've been saying, right? I've made changes to my team to make sure that everything is being taken care of properly. Anyone that's ever dealt with tax-related issues knows that it's not something that gets resolved overnight. It's a long process, but I'm confident in the people around me now, she says, and I'm focusing on all the opportunities ahead. I'm not sure where she's looking, but good luck to her. And then that Christian Grey says, well, I think that's about all you can do. And then he goes on to say, I'm sure you see what people have said about you dodging accountability and that you run from it. And then she goes, listen, I'm not running. I'm not running from it. But even if I wanted to get things done quickly, it's a process. This is what I've learned. And if it's going to be done, it needs to be done, correctly, because I'm dealing with this all by myself. But, listen, I'm a big girl. I'm doing it, and I'm making some changes to my team. She just goes on and on and on, you guys. She is all over the place like a terrified kid that doesn't know which way to turn. And then they asked her about something that Joe Giudice posted online. And she goes on to say that everything Joe Giudice does right now is driving her crazy. She goes on and just fully vents about Joe and about the fact that she's doing this all by herself. And she really wants him to come back to the US because she wants him to make some money so that he can help contribute to, the cost of her 4 daughters. She says that Louie's great, but they're not his responsibility, which then folds us right into Joe Giudice's latest Instagram post. Did you guys see it? He is now making a public plea to the President of the United States with a carousel of pictures of him and his kids and a statement that says, I'm Joe Giudice. I served my time. I've been deported from the US for nearly a decade. I was raised in Jersey. I'm a father of 4 amazing daughters, and I just want to be allowed to see them again. President Trump, I respect you, and I am asking for a second chance. 2 things that we know that President Trump always talks about: respect and giving second chances. So he's really hitting all the pressure points, right? And then he hashtags it with Pardon Joe Giudice, Family Matters, second chances, and Trump 2024, which, what does that mean? He voted for Trump in 24, but he can't vote because he was out of the country. I don't know. But anyway, there he is. Joe Giudice is really trying to make a play to get back. And I know it is because Teresa is putting that pressure on him, you guys, because the poor girl is broke and she needs bucks to raise those kids. And, anyway, no pressure, Joe. Speaking of pressure, let's talk about Kelly Dodd and what she got herself into this week. So hilarious, right? Kelly Dodd, known for being a hothead. Truthfully, there's nothing that I would put past Kelly saying. But I also don't think that Kelly really truly means half of what she says. I think she's one of those people that just spouts out and doesn't mean probably most of it, but she says crazy shit. I know, because I used to be one of those people. I used to say a lot of crazy shit, but it doesn't mean that I really meant it. So I get it. But Kelly's going on to say that what we heard on that recording of her saying that if she had, a pew pew, right, something to do it with, she would take Michael out, that she would, she said it in a million different ways, that she wanted to off him. Whatever. She said it. She absolutely said it. But now Kelly's trying to say that it's Michael that used AI to replicate her voice to make her out to be a bad guy. And I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. I believe that Kelly absolutely said that 100%, without a doubt. And speaking of doubt, here's another thing I'm doubting. Craig Conover has suddenly come out and made a statement on a podcast. Craig was on the Toast podcast, and he said that he indeed did buy Paige that ring. He said he didn't post any proof of it earlier because their relationship was private. And honestly, I don't buy that bullshit either. I do not believe that in any way, shape, or form. There is no way in hell that Andy would have put that pressure on him, asked him about the ring. And if there really was a ring, Craig would have pulled up some receipt. It doesn't matter if it was a picture, if it was the actual receipt, because he would have the actual receipt, right? Come on. I don't buy it for a second. Let it go, Craig. It is time to turn the page. But here is the couple, or rumored couple, that I really want to talk about. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but there are rumors swirling galore that there is an actual romance happening between Tom Schwartz and Lala. And you guys, I know there is not much evidence behind that, not much more than a girl who works at a deli saying that they're in there all the time and that he always buys her a sandwich, which I'm not sure how much a sandwich equates to true love, but I will take what I can get with this one, you guys, because as strange as it may seem, I could totally see it working. And I think that they would be so sweet together. And I would love that. And I know that there's probably nothing to it. They're probably honestly just friends. But truthfully, I am hoping there is more. I really am. So I know not a lot of evidence, but I am here for it. If it is happening, I am so here for it. I love it. I love it so much. And I love that that is the rumor we are ending on. That's about it for Hot Topics, you guys. I also wanted to let you know that Christy is obviously not with us this week. She is on vacation with her family, which means that we are not talking Miami today. But as soon as she is back, we are going to dive deep into it. So stay tuned for that. Until then, we are talking Atlanta, we are touching on NextGen, and we are diving deep into the Valley, so let's get into it. All right, we are headed down south to Atlanta, you guys. Let's go to Atlanta. This was a great episode. I mean, it opened up with Shamia talking about the greasing of the face and how her mother used to grease her face so heavily that anything would stick to her face. I mean, I thought it was so funny. And obviously I can't relate. I mean, my mother never greased my face. I didn't know anything about the greasing of the face. But you know what my mother did do? And I think a lot of moms do really weird, specific things trying to send their kids out in the world in the best way that they know how to send them. My mother, for her part, used to send my little kindergarten self trying to keep me warm, right? I was in California. It's not like I was in Wisconsin, so this is all way beyond me. But my mother used to send my little kindergarten self and first grade, I remember it very specifically in first grade, to school, you guys, with a wool turtleneck, fully wool turtleneck. Now, honestly, I personally think that is child abuse. I remember just spending the whole day with it pulled away from my neck. I hated it. I've always been very, particular about textures, especially on my skin. And honestly, to me, that felt like child abuse. I know my mom was just trying to keep me warm, but it was the worst. And honestly, that makes me wonder, did your mom do anything like that to you? Like grease your face or put you in the turtleneck? Certain weird particular things that they did to you when you were a kid that you look back on and you don't really understand? I think so many of us have them. If your mom did something strange like that to you, comment below and leave me a message about it, and we will talk about the list next week. The show opens up and we're with Shamia, who is dealing with her sweet daughter, Shiloh, and all of her health issues. And we are reminded about what happened last week with Shiloh, about how her grandmother found her cold and it took her so long to warm her body back up. And I'm telling you, that really fired me up. And honestly, Shamia must be an angel, because if somebody let my kid get that cold, I'd probably end up in jail. Anyway, then we find out that Asha, that surrogate that we met last week, did the transfer and that it didn't work and that they've decided now to go in a different direction, and I kind of don't blame them. And then we're with Phaedra. And honestly, at this point, thank God for Phaedra. And also, how cute are her kids? Dylan is making streetwear and his brother is his business manager. Phaedra tells the boys that she is having a fashion showcase and she will be featuring Mr. President's designs. And then it's Kelly's big court date, but she ends up walking out of court no farther along than she was when she walked in. Kelly's getting lots of support from Shamia and Angela, but nothing from Britt, because there is big beef brewing over that Glam Squad drama. Then we're at Williams-Sonoma, and that little cupcake Kelly is having a cooking event, and she has invited none other than Charles Oakley to do a little cooking with her. And it is a waffle off. A waffle off. I like that. Waffle off. Her and Charles are going head to head on who can make the better breakfast. Before the competition begins, the girls ask Kelly where Britt is, and she goes on to tell them that she hasn't actually talked to her since Grenada. Meanwhile, over at Britt's, Portia and Cynthia come over for a kiki, and Britt tells them all about the drama between her and Kelly and everything that's brewing with the Glam Squad drama. And then the waffle competition begins, it ends, and just as everyone is agreeing that it's a tie, some dingling walks up and asks Angela Oakley if he can talk to her off camera, because it's important. And she looks at this guy and says, "What is this about? And what's your name?" And this guy says, "Marcus." And she says, "How do I know you, Marcus?" And Marcus says, "I don't think you know me, but I know your husband. He comes in my restaurant. And I would like for us to talk so I can tell you some things that you might not know." And then this Marcus just walks away, and all the girls ask Angela, who the hell was that? And Angela says, I have no idea. And then this guy Marcus is with a group of other people, and he lifts a shot and says, cheers if your name is Angela Oakley and your husband is having an affair. And everyone gasps. Charles, for his part, doesn't respond. He either didn't hear or is pretending like he didn't hear. The event is over. Everyone leaves. Phaedra hops in the car. She immediately calls Portia, who is still with Britt and Cynthia, and tells them everything that went down. And then it's time for Phaedra's Black Love event. And honestly, how hilarious is Phaedra? I mean, she makes me laugh. She really does. But the comedy did come to a stop when Phaedra answers her phone, and it's Portia who's calling to say that she can't make it. And then she tells us that the reason she can't make it is because her cousin Londi died. So that obviously put a damper on things, but this is a Phaedra Parks event, and the show must go on. And so it does. All the girls arrive, and while Angela's sitting there telling them all about what happened with this Marcus character, Britt makes her big entrance. She says hello to Kelly, and Kelly just fully blanked her, and it is clear that things are about to go very south. Then Kelly dives back into the Williams-Sonoma conversation because it was her event. She goes on to say that it was open to the public. And then Angela pipes up and says, well, the thing about that is that I did my own research to find out who he was. And because I have people that do not play about me or my husband, they decided to pay him a visit. And what I found out is that he was paid to be there. And everyone says, by who? Angela says, he did give us a description of the man that paid him. Everybody says, a description. Kelly says, it was probably somebody that didn't show up. And Britt says, well, we were all at my house. And Kelly can't believe it. She looks at Cynthia and says, she let you in her house? And Cynthia says, and Portia too. And then it was on. Britt calls Kelly passive aggressive. Kelly says, I'm not passive aggressive. I'm aggressive aggressive. And then they dive into the whole thing about the glam squad. Britt's voice is getting louder and louder. She says Kelly was feeling insecure, like she was second. But it was her idea to give me the glam squad. And these two are going back and forth. And then Kelly says to Phaedra, girl, you better talk to your roommate, your pill-popping roommate. And that sent everyone in a spiral. And Phaedra, once again being hilarious, says, well, all she offered me was a Tylenol PM. I didn't get the Michael Jackson Propofol special. Kelly starts walking away and Britt yells, the stylist says you look a mess. And then she hits her with, unless you want to talk about all those abortions you had when you were married. And that is exactly when and how I found out that Britt does indeed have a pill problem. Because Kelly hit her where it hurt in that comment about the pills. So Britt decided to clear the clip and hit her straight in the heart. And at this point, all the women are rattled. Shamia looks at her and says, listen, you remember the way you felt when Kenya put those pictures up of you? You can't cross that line. Everybody is fully worked up, and Phaedra says, well, I am a Reiki healer. And then in confessional, Kelly says, well, honestly, my body, my choice. But secondly, I had my tubes tied after the twins, so there's no way in hell that I could even get pregnant. Meanwhile, outside, we see Drew's late arrival, but they won't let her in, so she decides to hit up the security guard for a chicken wing. And at the same time, we got an exterior shot of the venue, and honestly, didn't it just look like the most boring business park? Drew is banging on the door as the show is starting, and they only let her in after the main presentation. But don't worry, she didn't miss everything. Phaedra's two boys then took the stage and stole the show, and they were perfect, and there I was crying like a proud mom for somebody else's kids. Then Portia brings all the women back around and explains the why behind Portia's absence. And everyone is clearly shaken by what they heard. And the show ends with some very sweet words about Portia's cousin Lonnie. God rest her sweet soul. I thought it was a great episode. I'm telling you, Atlanta is heating back up, you guys, and I am here for it. And you guys, next week is going to be bonkers because that Marcus shows back up. And word on the street that there's a little Phaedra behind it all. So we will see. Okay, you guys, we're going to just now touch on NextGen because I'm giving this a little bit more of a chance too. I will tell you, I know I've said that Gia is so boring on this show for me, and she is, quite frankly. You know who's not boring? the other kids. I mean, we got a lot of the Marks family this episode, which I have to say, they are hilarious and bizarre. They are odd, but they are hysterical. In this episode, we see Brooks talking to his dad about that weird meeting that his dad had with Charlie. You know, the one where Seth told Charlie that he wanted to get to the point where he was sexually fluid and could have sex with both men and women, but don't tell his wife. And then we saw Teresa Giudice make yet another appearance. So Teresa's right, everybody. Booked and busy. We meet up with Charlie, his dad, and his dad's girl, which that was an interesting dynamic. Then we meet George's boyfriend, Omar, the crypto trader that's going into a party business with her. We see Ariana, who I'm really liking, and her boyfriend get their first apartment in New York City. Ariana's mom calls while they're in the apartment, so we see Kim and her lips. And then most of the gang heads out to Charlie's dad's house for a pool party, where everything goes great until Charlie's dad asks him about his future, and it becomes very clear that Charlie is still stuck in his dad's shadow and doesn't know how to get out. In confessional, Charlie says he doesn't think that he will ever escape his dad's judgment, and he's afraid that it'll only end when his dad dies. Then we're at Damon Dash's golf fundraiser in the Bronx. Brooke shows up with Seth. Meanwhile, Charlie's meeting up with Ava to apologize. And while they're walking, he tells Ava that he's already apologized to Riley again. He also tells her that Ariana is actually growing on him and that he definitely like to do her if given the opportunity. Then we're with Ariana and her boyfriend at the lab where they're meeting up with a designer to pick his brain. But the designer actually ended up picking theirs and then found out that they didn't have a lot of answers. Ariana tells him that they've been saving up for this venture, and he says, listen, whatever you think you have, it's not enough. And then we find out that they want to name this new streetwear line Adored Angels. But why? I mean, honestly, I really like Ariana, but that name, I hate that name. And then the episode wraps up at Chloe Marks' birthday party, where Gia made an appearance. Over in the corner, Ava asks Amira if she knew that Ariana was actually a fashion designer. And when Amira calls her out on that question, Ava just doubles down and says, sorry, it's just that every single time I've seen her, she's never given me the I'm designing a line vibe. Meanwhile, Ariana can feel the negative vibes and she says, I want Ava with the bitch ass attitude. Harkening back to Beyonce's famous song And Ava's Mother, the beautiful Rachel Roy, who actually is Becky with the good hair. Well played, Ariana. Well played. Then Brooks goes and tells Ava that he told Ariana about what she said and the fact that Ariana's now upset about it. And then they cut to Ariana's audio feed. She's behind closed doors in the bathroom, and you can hear her saying, listen, I'm just trying to build something from the ground up because I can't go to my parents for money. They can't help me with anything. I'm still paying their bills. Ariana and Gia come back from the bathroom. They sit down next to Brooks and Ava looks at Ariana and says, are you okay? And Ariana says, are you? Why are you coming for my line that you don't even know anything about? And great question, Ariana. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wait till next week to get those answers. So as far as NextGen goes, you guys, I'm still on the fence. I'm holding out hope that it's going to keep getting better and we're going to keep getting less Gia. And honestly, we haven't seen a lot of her, so fingers crossed. Okay, you guys, moving over to my neck of the woods, it is time for the Valley. The show opens up with Kristen and Luke settling into their new home, and he does not hate it. They are fully in love, on the baby train, and he is planning to propose. Zach and Benji meet up with Nia, and yes, I know her name is Nia. I know last week I said Nia interchangeably. I know her name is Nia. I promise. She is Mia no more. Anyway, they meet up with Nia and Danny to go over the whole Hawaii plan. All four of them are in on the surprise. Those are the only four that know what's really happening. Nia goes on to tell Zach that he can be the one to invite Janet and Jason on the trip because she doesn't want to. And it is not lost on Zach that it was just a year ago that Janet and Jason did not invite them to their baby moon. And now he gets to invite them. Zach also picks up the phone for an official invite for Kristen and Luke on this Hawaii trip. Kristen is very excited. She says she's going to start packing, and she obviously has no idea at all that this whole thing is actually Luke's trip. Then it's time for the coaching session. Jesse's life coach comes over and sits down for a circle with the guys. Danny's the first to speak. He says, I'm really glad that we're all here together today. There's been a lot of simmering tensions, and we've got this trip, this Hawaii trip coming up, and it would be great if we could clear some space so that we could all have a good time. And Jax right away goes, yeah, I'm not going. Yes, you heard that right. Jax says, I'm not going. He says, I just don't think it's good for me, and I want to spend some time with my son. And I mean, shocking, but I'm here for it. Then the coach teaches the guys about stacking, right? Stacking your resentments, which is something that most people do. Most people stack their resentments, and then eventually those resentments start mutating your own magic, which is exactly why we need to keep clearing them out. When it's Jax's turn, he stands up and he puts his hand on the coach's chest, and Jax starts to get emotional. And I know that Jax is a huge prick, right? I get that. I fully subscribe to that. But I just want to say that I personally remember what it feels like to be that scared and that fearful and that angry and that confused and just that distraught. And what that coach said to Jax and the little boy inside of him, he's exactly right. That's exactly where Jax needs to start if he ever wants to turn this around. I mean, I say all the time that it is never too late to turn it all around. And trust me, I mean that with every cell in my soul. But the truth is you have to do the work, the hard work, the scary work, the work that you're terrified of doing. But it is possible. And it is worth it. It is worth every single step. I promise you that. Then it's Danny's turn. Jason steps up to receive his words, and they dive right into Danny's closet drinking. And the coach immediately dials down on the fact that what Danny's doing is just employing tricks to hide his drinking. And Danny admits to it. The coach says something very real about all men being a little squirrely. And Mr. Boy Scout Jason pipes up and says, excuse me, but what's the actual definition of squirrely? And really, Jason, really, I will tell you, squirrely is basically anyone with a dick. And probably 90% of the rest of the population. Then all the girls get together at El Coyote for Mexican food and margaritas, and the tension between Janet and Nia is off the charts. Nia announces the Hawaii trip to everyone, and then Michelle announces that she's bringing her boyfriend with her. Michelle is hoping that Aaron's presence alone is going to help keep Jesse in line. Then Michelle brings up the fact that Kristen's friend slept with her boyfriend 2 years ago. Kristen obviously doesn't understand what this has to do with her, so Janet decides to explain it, which left Nia completely confused. And then the whole table devolved into complete chaos, with Janet screaming across the table, I'm holding you accountable, a word you can't stand. Kristen says, I'm being disrespected as fuck and I am leaving, which makes Nia start crying, and Janet says, fine, get your to-go box. Now Nia's crying even harder, and then Janet goes for the juggler and says, look at her. Every time she gets upset, it's tears. And yes, Janet, yes. That's what happens to some of us. We all express our emotions differently. Then it's a new day, we're at the park, and everyone's there to play field games, including Jenna, that girl that Aaron slept with a couple years ago, and Michelle is less than pleased. Jax is there, and Zach makes a comment about him looking like an angry chicken, and now I just can't stop looking at Jax and thinking, angry chicken. Then they all start doing relay races, and can I just tell you that not a single one of them knows how to follow directions? None of them. Not a single one. After the activities, Janet talks to Britt about what happened at El Coyote and how upset she was. Meanwhile, to Cameron, Nia says that at this point, her and Janet are not good, and she doesn't even want to be around her. Then we see Jax at lunch by himself. He thinks he's meeting Britt and Cruz for lunch, and after a few awkward minutes, he finds out that she's not coming. And the reason she's not coming is just because of all the horrible reports that she got about him the night before at his bar, drunk off his ass, hooking up with chicks, and Brittany feels like a fool again. Then Luke goes to drop off his gecko with Kyle Chan and pick up the engagement ring that he got for Kristen, which I'm still confused about. I still don't understand how a 4-carat ring is only $14,000, right? Am I crazy, you guys? Comment below and let me know what you think about that. I mean, if it's even decent quality, doesn't that sound insanely cheap? Anyway, then it's Hawaii time. Everybody lands. They get laid. Luke's instantly annoyed that Zach didn't give him and Kristen the presidential suite. But if he would have given them the presidential suite, don't you think that would have been suspicious? I think Zach did the right thing there. Then they all go get settled in, and then they meet back down at the cabanas. In the pool, Danny and Jason chatted up, and then they decide to bring the girls over in an attempt to squash the beef. Janet jumps in and apologizes to Nia right away. She says, "I'm so sorry. I was so drunk. I shouldn't have said those things to you." And then Danny goes on and apologizes to her for all the shit he said when they were at Britt's bar. And the four of them make nice. But then to camera, Nia says, "I pay very close attention and I am proceeding with caution." Back at the cabanas, Luke starts spooking out and Kristen doesn't know what's happening. And then Jesse starts ruminating on how much Michelle's boyfriend Aaron annoys him. And I'm telling you, this guy has a list. And then suddenly fast forward 2 hours to after dinner, and we see that Aaron and his eyeballs are on the receiving end of Jesse's rage. I mean, they were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and sad to say, now we have to wait until next week to see if they actually popped out of his head. And I don't care what anybody has to say, I am here for the Valley, dirty, messy, darkness and all. Say what you want about the Valley, I am here for it. All right, everybody, that about does it for this episode of Generally Speaking. Thank you so much for being here. If by chance you've been watching this on YouTube, please make sure you reach out and smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. If you've been listening on your favorite streaming platform, please make sure you leave us a comment, leave us a 5-star rating. We would love that. If you'd like to reach me on socials, you can find me on TikTok at This Is Generally Speaking or on Instagram at The Jennifer Snook. And if you'd like to get your hands on some of this adorable Generally Speaking merch, I will leave the link down below. All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I have loved spending this time with you. And until we're together again, everybody, stay rooted in love. We'll see you next time.